I wonder what it was like the first time someone saw a microorganism. The person who actually had that experience was Antony van Leeuwenhoek. Van Leeuwenhoek was a draper and started making his own magnifying lenses so that he could get a closer view of the fine threads he was using in his draperies. But as he got better and better at making these lenses, and as their magnifying power increased, he began using them to examine other things. Things like mold and bees and lice, because we all want to know what lice look like close up. Then on October 9th, 1676, he looked through his latest lens and saw something he hadn't even been known to be looking for. These strange, single-celled life forms. Bam! A whole new world opened up. Van Leeuwenhoek was thrilled by his discovery and wanted to share it. The Royal Society in London, however, which had been very supportive of his earlier work, turned their backs on him at this point, apparently thinking he was some kind of a crackpot. It took a while, and a lot of convincing, for them to come around. Now, we, of course, are all too aware of microorganisms. These days, I imagine them lurking on every possible surface. But that's not why I told this story. I told it because Van Leeuwenhoek's lenses opened his eyes to something he'd been blind to before. Whole worlds of organisms that had existed all along, just living their best lives, while humans were completely unaware of them. Something like this happens in our gospel passage today. Many, many eyes are opened in different ways. And even as eyes are opening, other eyes are completely missing what's happening right in front of them, just like the Royal Society did initially. The passage starts with the disciples noticing the man who was born blind. So this man's never seen anything. But Jesus spits on the ground, makes mud, and smears it on the man's eyes. Then he sends him to wash at the pool of Siloam, which means sent, and the man comes back seeing. There are other kinds of blindness, though, than just not having functioning eyes. It is entirely possible, even common, to look right at something and be blind to what we're actually seeing. That's certainly I experienced back in high school and college labs, because unlike Van Leeuwenhoek, I was terrible at understanding what I was seeing through a microscope. It was not unusual for me to mislabel the parts of cells or the various microscopic creatures that we were supposed to identify. That's the kind of blindness that really stands out in our story. People looking, but misinterpreting or mislabeling what they saw. When the disciples spot the man born blind, the first words out of their mouths, are, "Who sinned so that this man was born blind? This man or his parents?" That's what they see. They see sin and God's judgment. Their way of seeing keeps them detached and clinical, as though they're looking at some kind of a laboratory specimen. But when Jesus looks at the man, what he sees is a person in need. And in responding to that need, a chance to show God's glory and grace. Interestingly, though, he also sees capability. He doesn't treat the man as a helpless, passive object. He makes him a partner in his own healing by sending him to wash at the pool. He doesn't take him by the hand or ask one of his disciples to guide him there. He simply sends him, rightly assuming that the man has the capacity to find his own way. And he's right. The man's been navigating this community all his life. He demonstrates his resourcefulness and his desire for healing by going straight to the pool with no apparent difficulty whatsoever, and he returns with new vision. That's when we learn of another kind of blindness. His own neighbors, who know his family, who must have walked by him every day, ask, "Is this the man who used to sit and beg?" Now first, they don't even know his name. Second, they must have never really looked at his face or seen him as a person before, because they can't even agree about his identity. And then we have the Pharisees. When they look at this man, who just this morning was completely blind, and who is now standing there with eyes wide open, they don't see a miracle. They see sin. Jesus's sin. That man broke the Sabbath laws. Here is a man suddenly made whole, and they are worried about Sabbath laws. They really can't see the forest for the trees. But they're not alone, are they? Neither are the disciples or the neighbors, because haven't we all demonstrated those different kinds of blindness at different times? Haven't we, like the disciples, noticed someone who was struggling? A person living on the street, a parent with a problematic child, a juvenile locked up behind bars, and seen a chance to point a finger rather than an opportunity to show God's compassion. And haven't we, like the neighbors, walked by people every day, or even sat next to them in the pews without ever really seeing them, or learning their names, or imagining their lives beyond that setting? And haven't we, like the Pharisees, gotten so bogged down in rules and regulations that we've missed ways to show grace to people? I mean, my goodness, we're Presbyterians. We're all about the rules. Yes, we can be blind in a lot of different ways. But I'll tell you something. This last week has helped me to see things in a whole new way. We've had to throw out old ways of how to be church just so that we can continue to be church. And I've been moved to see the willingness of our staff and our members to roll with the punches and to figure things out along with us. And I see individuals in a whole new way. Last Tuesday, we had staff meeting by Zoom, each of us in our own homes. Laura's cat was hanging out with her and had a few words to say. Kat was behind her computer at home, and Jillian and Maddie came in to join us for a bit, all decked out in their St. Patrick's Day finery. Then, that evening, we had the Zoom version of Focus at First, with members both of First Presbyterian and Montevallo joining from their homes as Sam taught from our living room couch. There's something strangely intimate about seeing one another in our natural habitats, with our families and pets and books and pictures all around us. I've realized that it helps me to see the fullness of people's lives beyond church, where we usually see each other. And the reason that we're doing these things, this frightening pandemic, makes me see even more clearly how fragile each person is, and therefore how very, very precious. And if there's anything good about this pandemic, it is that. This stark reminder not to take anyone for granted. This reminder that loving one another is a matter of urgency. Jesus says to his disciples in answer to their question about sin, neither this man nor his parents sinned. But in order that the glory of God might be revealed in him, we must work the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. The New Revised Standard Version inserts the phrase, "He was born blind, that God's glory might be revealed in him." But that phrase isn't in the original Greek. God doesn't cause human suffering, whether it's blindness or a pandemic, just to set the stage to show God's glory. God doesn't do evil in order to do good. There are many causes for bad things to happen, but when they do happen, God creates the possibility for glory by giving us the opportunity to see the need and respond as Jesus would. And so, my friends, this is the opportunity before us to see, really see one another with new eyes and new hearts, to look with compassion rather than judgment on those who are struggling, to remember that the woman with the "Please help" sign by the freeway ramp, or the young man in prison, or the family member trapped in addiction is a human being with clear limitations, but also with real capabilities to participate in their own healing, given half a chance. Jesus said to his disciples, "We must do the works of the one who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work." In these strange days, when our regular work has been upended, we can still do the works of the one who sent us. We can create some daylight in the midst of the darkness by really seeing and responding to one another. In fact, wherever we are doing the works of the one who sent us, so long as we keep our eyes open to the beauty and worth of every person. For each person, every one of you is a manifestation of the glory of God. I hope we can see that now. Thanks be to God.